If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson. Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt, the guy that created this program, my good friend, Gary C. Johnson.
Hi, folks. Guys and gals, thank you so much for hanging out with me and Keith. Woo! It's another day, right? Another week. Things went pretty good, right? None of you criticized, condemned, or complained, right? You were all impeccable with the word. You didn't gossip. No imagined slights. It was just a wonderful week that my friends enjoyed. And everything is going smooth in the house right now, right? Okay, for those of you that didn't, suck it up. It's not worth it. Literally, there is no time in this dash that we've got to be angry. It takes too much time. It's time consuming, and it wastes your dash. So anger, get over it, get rid of it, snuff it out. But they did this to me, they did that to me. So what? 6 months from now, you're not going to remember it. 5 years from now, you're not going to remember it. I guarantee you nobody's going to care when 50 million years from now the earth is a big ball of ice or whatever. Right? Anger, time consuming. Takes up good, valuable time that you could be saying, oh boy, it's good to be alive. It's good to just live. It's good to have these folks around me. It's good to be part of something. So, no anger this week, my friends. When you start to feel anger, talk about it. Wait 24 hours, and then you probably won't be angry because it didn't mean anything. Religiously abide by the 24-hour rule. If there's emotion involved in a situation and you're expected to give a response, say to the person, I'll get back to you tomorrow, and wait 24 hours. I promise you, I absolutely guarantee you that your response tomorrow will be completely different than it would have been right then. Emotions are crazy. They get you in trouble. They cause you unbelievable grief. They don't care what happens to you. And they'll open that old mouth and it'll start taking off. And it's bad.
You pointed out a good lesson for me to start this year. You talked about the list. I think USA Today comes up with it, but you said, Keith, look at all the list of the people, the important people, actors, musicians, politicians, all of these important people that didn't make it through 2018. And you said the world did not stop spinning. Time didn't come to a standstill. Everything went on. Now, what's important? And you were making it clear not to waste anything on anger or anything, to realize whatever time you got to cherish it.
Remember, folks, go up to the graveyard and you'll see just a little bitty dash. That's all you've got. But it was a gift, that dash was. And that gift is squandered if you let emotions control your life. Anger, vengeance, I'm going to get them. All of that stuff. It's just such a waste of good, valuable dash. It's not worth it. Honestly, I'm saying to you, and it's the truth, I may have people mad at me, but I can't remember it. I may have people that have said mean things to me, and I know I have, but I can't remember it because I don't pay attention to it. I don't care if they call me the old cow or the dog or whatever. I don't pay attention to it. I don't care. I know who I am.
I got to tell our friends, he is 100% telling you the truth. I've been with him before when somebody wanted to criticize, and Gary said, well, do you know a good joke instead? Because I'd rather hear a good joke. At least I would laugh.
That's right. It's the truth. It's not worth it. And you can do the same. You really can. And if you're harboring some resentment and all of that, turn it loose. It's not doing any harm to anyone but you. Just let it go. Not easy, is it? But trust me, once you start that road of not paying any attention or caring about what people say about you or what people might think about you, you're free. You're free to enjoy your dash. You're free to have some happiness.
Gary, is this no different? You know, we talked last week a little bit about exercising and changing our diet and changing our lifestyle. You're basically telling us the same thing mentally, that if you're going to be happy, you got to start slow, you got to make little changes, you got to realize that you're going to fail. In fact, the other day, you did this article on Teddy Roosevelt about the man in the arena, and you pointed out on the radio, it's okay to succeed, it's okay to fail. The thing that's not okay is to sit on the sideline and do nothing.
I watched a lawyer over my career who was a brilliant lawyer. I'm not going to mention any names. That was a genius at being negative. It didn't matter what anyone was trying to build or do. This lawyer had the ability to point out the negatives in it. This lawyer never built anything. Never had any hope of building anything, even though probably one of the most capable lawyers in the country, but was so consumed with negativity and why other people, things that they were doing were wrong, that they never did anything themselves. If you try to do something and you fail, then you're a hero. At least you tried. You didn't sit on the sidelines and say, what if, what if? Or if you're a person that says someone else is doing something and you decide, well, I'm going to point out to them all the things that they should have done different, that's a mistake. Mistake. Because all that is you say, well, they need to really get my input here because that'll make it so much better. No, you're criticizing what they're doing when you do that. If a person is doing something, clap. Yay! Wonderful. Just like you hope people will do that if you're doing something. And it may not be perfect. There is nothing perfect. Even Keith isn't perfect. I can promise you. I've been around him.
100%, my friend. You're talking about this negativity. It is a lifestyle, because the other day I heard a gentleman in one of the stores and somebody said, are you going to play the lottery? He said, oh, if I were to win the lottery, it would kill me to have to pay those taxes. And I thought, I've never heard anybody say that you would be upset that you would have to pay the taxes on winning the lottery. This individual could not be happy to win the lottery because they would have had to pay the taxes. That's kind of what you're talking about with this attorney, that everything is negative.
Well, I've never seen anyone that couldn't find fault. Okay? But my friends, you don't do that. You quit doing that, right?
So you're saying in 2019, we've got to take the phrase, you know what you should have done, out of our vocabulary? You know what I would have done if it were me? Mm-hmm. All those good things that we do.
I'll bet you that for the next week you'll find yourself starting to do it. I guarantee you will. You'll want to give your opinion as to why it should have been done different or better or whatever.
Gary,
It's hard to keep your mouth shut, but try it.
you amazed me when you told me the story about an individual who was talking to another individual about the automobile they had bought. And they were saying, why did you buy that one? You should have got the other one with the engine, or you should have got the other color, instead of saying, I'm so happy for you that you got yourself a new vehicle.
How many of you have done that? Said, well, if it's me, I'd have got this different car. Or that one really doesn't get good gas mileage. I hate that color. Could you believe that anybody buy that color? Why did you do that?
It's funny,
human.
but it's not funny.
It's not funny. It's
Yeah.
true. We do it. People do it. I mean, it's called being human. But you're going to be a little better than being human, right, my friends? You're going to think before you open that mouth. You're going to not camouflage criticism by saying, I would have done it different. Unsolicited advice is nothing more than camouflaged criticism. Remember that. When you start giving somebody advice, you're literally criticizing them. Because if they've told you what they want to do, they've made their mind up, they know what they want to do, they're looking to you to validate it, not criticize it. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
You know, I think we're going to have a whole lot of fun this week because Gary's right. You will catch yourself. I don't know why we do it, but you will catch yourself saying, well, I sure wouldn't have done it that way if it were me. Something to think about. Stay with us. Simply the Law and Gary C. Johnson right after this.
You notice on the legal advertisement of lawyers that they've made verdicts an issue? Well, guess what? This old boy from eastern Kentucky's got the largest verdict in the state of Kentucky, and nobody's even come close to it. Over my career, I've got my clients verdicts of over $315 million. Yep, I'm glad they made verdicts an issue. Check my record and I'll bet you decide it might be wise to give old Gary a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. You know, during the break, see, now that you brought this up, I just remembered I did it last week. I had somebody tell me, I think I'm going to book me a cruise. And what did I say? You'll be seasick. I went on one and I stayed sick the whole trip. I don't know why you want to go on a cruise. Now, why would I say that?
Good question. Because you wanted to criticize their choice. That's why. Simple.
Yeah.
Let's go to the computer. I got some stuff I need to talk to you folks about. There's our number in case any of you need to call us. Webpage, GaryCJohnson.com. In general, under insurance, I'm going to go fast through this because I've got a lot to cover. Arbitration, please. The hospital, nursing home, don't sign their arbitration agreements. Last week, we talked a little bit about the jury, and I told you the story of the jury that went through all of that. I'm going through this because I don't mean for you to see it because we covered it last week. I'm getting over to where we left off last week.
And that was a great story because this jury faced death, just to recap, but
Right.
they would not give the king's decision because they wanted justice.
And they changed it, that jury did.
They shifted the power from the king to the jury.
Okay, now, the contributions of brave people in the past allows us to have the luxury in America of knowing that we have a right to a jury trial. When our forefathers came over from England, they were absolutely sick of things not being fair.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted fairness. And so they set up a constitution. And one of the first acts following the American Revolution was for the states to adopt existing English common law, which was the right to a trial by jury. And when they did the 10 amendments, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the 7th Amendment, which may be one of the most important amendments we have, the 7th Amendment to the United States Constitution was adopted in 1791 to incorporate the common law into the federal court system. Now, what did that mean? The right to a trial by jury was adopted. Now, in Kentucky, many constitutional provisions preserve the common law causes of action that existed when we adopted our state constitution. These rights are in addition to any statutory rights that have been enacted to protect the public. I guess I need to talk to you about that a little bit before we go on. You have the legislature that passes laws. Well, you didn't have legislatures passing laws in Old England, so the judges created what they call legal precedent. Some of you heard that talk in these Kavanaugh hearings where they ask him, what do you feel about legal precedent? In other words, decisions that's already been handed down by other judges. Will you adhere to that? That's one of the questions they ask you. That is a body of law that's totally independent of our legislature, completely independent of it. It's common sense law. I call it the people's law. The law that is enforced by the people, which is a jury. It's not statutes. It's not the legislature. You don't have police officers enforcing the law. In other words, a car wreck is enforced by the people's law, which is a jury. A product liability case, enforced by the people. It's the people's law. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the computer and let me get back to where I'm started from there. Kentucky legislature cannot enact laws that eliminate these common law rights under our Constitution. And those rights are simple, those juror rights that came down through the common law. It's a right to open courts, right to everyone to be in court, the right to a trial by jury, the right to a remedy for an injury, the right to no limit on the recovery. In other words, if you've been damaged $1 million, you've got a right to recover $1 million, rather than somebody limiting that right. Now, this only applies to actions for death, personal injury, property damage, and defamation. The legislature can eliminate or abolish other causes of action, but these are preserved. Death, personal injury, property damage, and defamation, you have the right to a trial by jury, the right to a remedy for the injury, and the right to no limit on the recovery in Kentucky today.
So, Gary, let me ask you, if I'm getting the take on this right, and please tell me, so you can't change these laws, so the way that you can affect them is try to get rid of the jury who upholds the laws and turn it over to a, quote, king? Is that it?
No. The way to do it, which corporate America and the state of Kentucky is pushing for even today, is to amend the Constitution that guarantees you those rights. Do an amendment that says the legislature, what I call the shrimp eaters, can go down there and be wooed by these corporations and get shrimp bought for them and whatever. And they can then pass laws to limit the right to a trial by jury. They could then limit the right to a remedy for the wrong and limit the amount a person can recover for their injuries.
You've got to be kidding me. That's on the table, that the law would be changed, that if a corporation does you $1 million worth of damage, you can only collect $50,000.
The constitutional amendment was put forth in our Senate in Kentucky this last legislature. It didn't pass the House, but I absolutely guarantee you that the Senate will again in Kentucky introduce a bill to amend the Constitution of the state of Kentucky to give the legislature the right to take away those things, those juror rights. Guarantee you it'll happen. May have already been filed. And that's the people that are going to introduce it and pass it, and I'll say it right now, that are owned by corporate America. They have their own agenda. I was in the state Senate for 4 years. I never, ever saw anyone in there lobbying for the little people. They didn't exist. But the large corporations, the people with the money, they had lobbyists everywhere. You could go to one of these receptions every night and eat their shrimp if you wanted to. That's why I call legislature shrimp readers. You could.
They're just
trying to influence what happens, to influence the public.
But from our friend's standpoint and the common sense standpoint, it just almost seems wrong that a lobbyist can invite you to a big cocktail get-together and have shrimp and say, oh, by the way, me and the big corporation want you to put out this bill that's going to get all the working people taken off the ability to ever do anything if we harm them.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I want to talk some more about this.
You know, I got to be honest with you. You know, information is powerful, but sometimes it can be scary. And some of the things that Gary's talking about, even life-threatening. Stay with us. We'll be back. Simply the Law continues after this.
I'm attorney Gary C. Johnson. I hate these commercials as bad as you do. I have no choice if I want to let you know that I'm in the business of practicing law, representing injured people, except to do this commercial. I don't fish, I don't golf, I get money for injured people. Check my record, go to GaryCJohnson.com, and I'll bet you if you've been hurt, you might want to give me a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. Gary, we've got this year, I guess we've got a gubernatorial election. State and Senate races will be coming up the next 2 years. Would right now be a good thing to do to take the pen and write down, okay, whoever my candidate is, here's my question to them. Are you going to be trying to support this bill or pass this bill?
Are you going to, literally this, will you help protect the rights that our forefathers gave us by leaving the Constitution alone? It's worked, it worked. As of today, the smallest individual that you could conceive, which to me there's no small individual, but let's just say this for purposes of this, can bring the largest corporation in America to its knees with a jury. Where else in the world does the individual people have that kind of power? No other country in the world do they have it. Why do you think they want to change it? Because you don't have Vioxx on the market anymore. You don't have Fen-Phen on the market anymore. All of these bad things that's happened to people. Juries are the one that made those decisions. The jury, not the lawyers. All the lawyer can do is report to the jury.
Let me ask you this question. You started out telling about the jury that faced death to do the right thing in justice. What does it speak of our forefathers who could have made themselves kings? They could have not put any of this stuff in and controlled everything and had a monopoly, but they said no. They gave all that up so that everybody could have rights.
And yet it's eroding, and you all know it. Little by little, are chipping away at our rights. Little by little. They may call themselves on the left doing it. They may call themselves on the right. I really think when you got left and right, it's like that. But I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I'm saying protect your right to have the power to go in front of a jury. Let's take our last break and we'll be right back.
You know, the protection. Now that's a word. We'll finish up with that when we come back. Simply the Law and Gary C. Johnson after this final break.
Insurance companies will test lawyers to see if they know what they're doing. Luckily, they tested me. And because of that, over the years, I've been able to get verdicts for my clients in excess of $315 million in the state of Kentucky, most of which are just in eastern Kentucky. We proved we know what we're doing. We proved we can go in front of a jury. And guess what? Most of my cases settle now. Wonder why? Give us a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. Gary, we talk about protecting yourself by driving safe, defensively. We've talked about, being able to protect yourself at home by being able to bear arms, but really having an advocate for you when you go to the hospital to protect you. But the ultimate protection that you're talking about is the 12 men and women that you can stand in front of and do what you said. If the biggest corporation in the world wrongs you, you, little old you, can hold them accountable because of our system.
It's very simple, my friends. The jury system works. I don't care how much criticism you think you've heard. It's just not true. It's corporate America trying to brainwash you into saying you've got runaway juries. And juries do the right thing, always. I've been at this business 40-some years and I've never seen a jury do the wrong thing, ever. Why would they do the right thing? They got no dogs in the fight. They get $12.50 a day to come in there and listen to that stuff hour after hour. What's in it for them other than to do the right thing? And that's what a jury will do. We've got to guard and protect that right to people to have access to our jury system. And the only way we'll lose it in the state of Kentucky is if the legislature puts in a constitutional amendment and then millions and millions and millions of dollars are spent convincing you to vote for it. And if it gets on that ballot, they will do it. There's no question.
What are they going to tell us? It's going to bring us jobs. It's going
it'll
to save
be
us
fairness,
money.
And your insurance will go down. It's the favorite one is it's going to lower your insurance rates. That's a lie. Your insurance rates never go down. And if you insurance companies collect premiums, they normally don't pay claims if they can keep from it. It's that simple.
That's
just the way it is.
It's still your story
Yeah.
about the wolves telling the sheep. Let's get rid of those dogs. My friend, thank you so much. This was a very interesting program with some valuable information. Remember to jot that down about your candidate. Where do you stand on this issue? On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week at this very same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.